Hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. This is indeed an appropriate time to remember and to celebrate the efforts of Elgin women in the suffrage movement. I am but one of several activists who work toward the right of women's voting rights in Elgin. Our efforts go back many years before the ratification of the 19th Amendment. With your permission, I would like to share that history with you today. First, a little of my background. I, Clara Todson, was born in Chicago, but spent the greater portion of my life in Elgin. I attended both Elgin High School and Elgin Academy. My first career was as an educator, spending part of that career teaching in the Elgin Public Schools. Later, in 1901, I finished my training and began practicing osteopathic medicine in town. I have always considered the privilege and right to vote an important part of my civic duty. Voting rights for women of Elgin and the state of Illinois truly did come in fits and starts. In 1869, the first women's suffrage organization in Illinois was founded, the beginning of a long journey. An attempt at a federal amendment in 1878 failed. 13 years later, in 1891, Illinois legislation approved the right for women to vote for local school officials. My friend Mattie Lowrie, who actually had been the first Elgin woman elected to public office in 1889 by male voters only, of course, was re-elected to the Board of Education when Elgin women cast their first ballots. We were not satisfied with receiving only this voting right, however. Under my leadership, the Civic Equality League was formed in 1909. This group was affiliated with the Illinois Equal Suffrage Association, a branch of the National Woman Suffrage Association. To recruit members for the Illinois Association in the northern part of the state, automobile tours were organized in 1910. Mattie and I joined the group in Elgin, driving around the Elgin Business District, inviting women to meetings on Fountain Square, at the Watch Factory, and at the D.C. Cook Publishing Company. It was a grand time, invigorating and hopeful. The fall of that year, Elgin hosted the state's Equal Suffrage Association's annual convention. I was privileged to be one of the speakers. 3 years later, in 1913, a partial victory was achieved with the approval of the Illinois Presidential and Municipal Suffrage Act. This was the first real suffrage act adopted by a state east of the Mississippi River. Women were then allowed to vote for presidential electors and city, village, and township officials. However, they could not vote for governor or anyone running for a state office. It importantly did allow voting in local referendums, a key victory for those also involved in the temperance movement. In 1914, Elgin Township voters were asked, "Shall this township become anti-saloon territory?" Women had a significant influence in the passing of this referendum in a resounding yes. After the vote, 34 Elgin and 3 South Elgin saloons were closed. The passing of the 19th Amendment is no doubt well known to you. It was passed by Congress on June 4th, 1919. Almost a week later, on June 10th, Illinois became one of 3 of the first states to ratify it. Finally, on August 18th, 1920, the 36th state ratified this glorious amendment, making it law. Unfortunately, a sister suffragette from Elgin was unable to celebrate our victory. Lois Hillis, a noted music teacher and strong advocate for voting rights for women, died just a few months before Illinois ratified the amendment. It was a bittersweet moment for us, not having Lois with us. She had been an early advocate, introducing Susan B. Anthony to a small audience in Elgin's Universalist Church in 1876. Rest assured, Lois, your efforts for women's rights were not in vain. Many women working for the right to vote were also very involved in the temperance movement. Please allow me to share a bit of that history with you also. I mentioned that I spoke at the 1910 Equal Suffrage Association's annual meeting in Elgin. A comment I made at that gathering has been remembered years later. I stated that the men who opposed our movement were, and I quote myself, mostly the liquor men, gambler, and corrupt politicians. Indeed, these men were fearful of the power of women's votes to close saloons, and they certainly should have been fearful. Many women, particularly wives, were quite concerned about the evil influence of liquor. A common occurrence for some husbands, certainly not all, would be a visit to the saloon on payday before coming home. Physical and mental abuse of family members was incurred after consuming large amounts of alcohol. While I never married, I saw the result of liquor's negative influence on families. The campaign song I would like to share with you now is one that was heard, no doubt, by many Elginites prior to the 1914 referendum vote I mentioned previously. While it is not a song promoting the suffrage movement, it is most definitely sung in reference to women holding the powerful right to vote. You are encouraged to join in on the last line of each of these 3 verses. Elgin is a noted city, Illinois, Illinois, but it's wet and that's a pity, Illinois, Illinois. But we'll write this by and by, underneath the April sky. Elgin women will vote dry, Illinois, Illinois. Elgin women will vote dry, Illinois. We make watches, shoes, and butter, Illinois, Illinois. And we've sent men to the gutter, Illinois, Illinois. But we're going to face about, drive saloons and blind pigs out. We'll go dry beyond all doubt, Illinois, Illinois. We'll go dry beyond all doubt, Illinois. Tell it out to all the nation, Illinois, Illinois. Elgin has the combination, Illinois, Illinois. Voting women hold the key, which will set our city free, and saloonless we will be, Illinois, Illinois. And saloonless we will be, Illinois. Thank you for indulging me in my attempt at singing. Remember, it was not the quality of the singing we were interested in, but the enthusiasm. Did you recognize that tune as our state song? Well, there is still much to be accomplished for us all to be truly equal, not just women, but those of all race, color, and creed. Let us keep working on this noble cause.